Awesome. Thank you very much, Kim. Great to hang out with the fans there. And now we're back here at the anchor desk with Chris Metzen right off stage, powering up the crowd with the new expansion.
That was fun.
That's one of your most impassioned BlizzCon openings I've seen in a while.
It's like the same old thing. Like every year, like it doesn't actually get easier. Like so, my nerves are shot and just wigging out. So like that energy, I guess, just kind of comes out. And you know, it's a whole game of like. Not going too, not making a total ass out of myself, but it's getting.
Well, it's been a while since it's been a while since a BlizzCon. You got some big news for the fans there, and I think there's more news coming because I know you're very involved in the Warcraft movie, and you guys didn't say much in the opening ceremony, but tomorrow there's that panel.
Yeah.
You're going to be on it with Duncan. I mean, we're going to get hopefully some real information on the movie too, right?
After all these years of coming to BlizzCon and having all the questions, people go, how's the movie going, and not really being able to say much. This year. We're gonna come at it with some pretty concrete stuff. So I'm excited to hear what Duncan has to say. It'll be much more informative than previous years.
Like cast or story, or what are we gonna find out about tomorrow?
I kind of want to save the reveal, but let's just say it will not be unclear.
Okay.
After tomorrow, what this movie is about, the pocket of Warcraft that it deals with.
Oh, awesome. Okay, fantastic. Well, that'll be great to get some. So that's things. The news continues here at BlizzCon. So it wasn't in the opening ceremony, but tomorrow, as you mentioned, I think 12:30 Pacific or something. There's the panel tomorrow, so we'll check that out.
I think is it 1 o'clock? It might be 1, maybe 12:30.
Okay, cool.
Right. And we will be covering that live on the broadcast tomorrow. So
Absolutely.
if you want to see what's going to be announced and what this movie is going to be, this is where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
So you started off your speech in a very unconventional way, which I'm very grateful for, being an Alliance player myself, but you brought a little bit of pride and respect back to the Alliance, which I think that we sometimes forget who we are.
Right.
Where did that come from?
I think, honestly, over time, I mean, I look at the internet too, and the Alliance community, I think, has been very vocal with this, I'll call it a conspiracy theory, that, Blizzard developers don't love the Alliance as much as the Horde, and
yes.
it's just absolutely, it's just not true. But I've thought about it a lot over time. I've thought about the storylines they've called out, and the storylines they'll, or the character moments that they'll call out for the Horde. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting. It's not like we love the Alliance less, or there's less to do with the Alliance. But I think sometimes, I've heard it said this way. This is a little weird. This is theory crafting, right? But I've heard it said this way with comic writers, right? That writing Wolverine's kind of easy, right? It's this really compelling, gritty kind of thing. But writing guys like Superman and Captain America can be very difficult because they're so morally upright, and that's what fans love about characters like that. That it can be really difficult to kind of summon storylines where these very upright characters are very dimensional, because they don't make mistakes. They don't, and so. I wonder in a way sometimes that maybe that takes effect in our development, that the Horde's a little easier to get gritty with and really sink your fingernails into some of that content. And, the Alliance, they're the lawful good, faction, like where do you go? So it's a little harder, but it is not remotely impossible. It's actually really fun work, and it's something we're very mindful of. And I kind of just wanted to give a shout out to the Alliance, because when I think about these old games and I think about Warlords of Draenor, the first frame of reference I get into is the Alliance.
Right.
If I'm an Alliance champion, you're just going, oh hell, not this again. It's kind of your worst nightmare coming true.
That was when they bonded together and became who they were.
Totally.
So let's jump directly into this next expansion. How are we getting there, and what is it?
Right. At the panel coming up here in a little bit, we're going to get into it quite a bit, but it does involve
Scooping the panel. Yes.
It does involve the character of Garrosh, the former Horde war chief that was deposed very recently during the Siege of Orgrimmar. And it has a lot to do with, how much should I I'll just say
They're going to find out in 30 minutes.
We're going to find out in 30 minutes. Garrosh ultimately is going to be put on trial, but he escapes before justice can be done. And with a special friend of his that might have some time-traveling powers, he's going to go back to the 70s. He's going to go back to when classic rock, was bringing it back to the time when the world made sense to him, when all the heroes that he grew up with, the stories that he was told as a young man, when these guys are still in their prime. And his intent is to redeem the Orcish ideal.
Okay.
And to prevent the one moment that changed history, when the Orcs were first corrupted,
right,
to stop that from happening.
Not drinking the blood.
Not drinking the blood of Manaroth, and to forge those clans into a horde, but a very different kind of horde, through which ultimately, in his mind, he will exact his revenge in our time.
Okay.
Against the Alliance and Horde that have done him wrong. Yeah.
Does that mean that we're going to be fighting him again at the end of this expansion?
You know, a good question. I guess I want to be very clear with our fans that Garrosh is important to facilitating the storyline. Everything I told you is true. But he is not, in fact, going to be the boss of the expansion set. He's not the Lich King or the Illidan of this chapter, but he sure gets things in motion. You know, so who the real boss is and how this whole thing escalates and ultimately endangers our time. We're gonna let that ride a little bit more and let people kind of have fun theory crafting.
Let me ask one question before Jeff asks, which I'm sure he has plenty. There's some clarification from Twitter. Who is the Orc war chief?
Who is the Orc? I've seen it too. Who is the Orc racial leader? In truth, we haven't actually determined that yet, but I'll tell you where my gut is, with the caveat that we may change it. At this time, for this chapter, I actually don't want it to be Thrall. He's the obvious answer. I'd like it to go to Sourfang or Eitrig, probably Sourfang, who's a fan favorite and a very noble Orc. I think Orcs would be happy to be rolling with him for a while, but with Warlords of Draenor, Thrall's got some business to do. He's got some family business to take care of, and he's going to solve a lot of problems with his hammer in this one. And I apologize for spitting. I can see it flying out across.
They can't see it.
Now, I know we're waiting for some questions coming on Twitter for you. You can tweet us at Jeff Keighley and at Cat Hunter with questions on that. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Chris, was Heroes of the Storm. When we saw that trailer, everyone got really excited about, you know, all the characters coming together from sort of a lore and story perspective. Is that just fun, or I mean, how does that all tie together?
It's totally fun. It's asinine, right? It's out of control, right? But I look at it like it's like Lego Batman, or you know, we're playing Lego Marvel right now with my 5-year-old, and I love that kind of stuff. As a younger man, you know, trying to get big franchises built, I didn't like the crossovers as much, but these days, I think they're so much fun. And I saw that video come up. We were standing backstage, and that's one of the loudest roars of the morning, you know. And boy, if that doesn't confirm, you know, kind of how we see it. You know, it's just this really fun romp, putting all these flavors into the pot and just having a blast with it, right? So that was a nice confirmation that people are really excited about these characters and see them ultimately beat the brains out of each other. So
I want to ask you one question just to get out of the way for our viewers, because it was one of the biggest questions we had before this, is why haven't we seen an Emerald Dream expansion? Every time that's what they're expecting. I
mean, I'll say, you know, there's the Emerald Dream, there's kind of this idea of like a South Seas kind of thing. You know, we've seen this on the internet over the years, like a lot of different types of expanded content that we could be getting into. Recently I saw the rumors about like a Burning Legion expansion set. What I would say is all of those are really exciting ideas. I would, as a fan myself, I want to get to it all. When we get to the point of deciding what the next expansion set will be, we weigh a lot of factors. I can tell you about the Emerald Dream in particular, is that it's a really good idea. I don't know that it's a really good idea for a place to visit, perhaps have some raid content, perhaps have some procedural kind of, you know, scenario type content, but as its own breathing world, trying to string 6 zones together that are all green and lush is conceptually challenging. So it's not one of the first ones we run to every time, but we talk about it every time. But I think the Emerald Dream, as a developer, I think its best use is kind of as this really awesome subset of a larger expansion set, kind of like the Elemental Planes in Cataclysm.
Okay.
All right. Well, Chris, thanks for swinging by. It sounds like you've got a lot more to do here at BlizzCon over the next 2 days, and that Warcraft movie panel tomorrow. We'll look forward to some news on that, so we'll be checking in with you again. Thanks for stopping by. Now, one thing we're going to check out right now that you may not